Like a database, searching by keywords. That'd be a drop down there.
Yeah, but now that's a tool like one. Yeah.
Drag your finger on it. Yeah.
I'll do that. Got something for you to do with dust.
Everything's digitized. Yeah, all you need is a, it's a golf file, it's just, you just put it online and something gets on the database. If it's paper, then you scan it, turn it into PDF.
Yep. But now,
Okay.
San Francisco out. Six four. Oh, San Francisco's up now.
That's their last game that we back on.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah, they don't have to take them.
No, they're off tomorrow, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They
They
don't
usually play like 9 or 12 games.
They don't go to Arizona?
Must be done.
So right now, that's the last night.
Observational game.
Yeah, I was it.
Yeah, sure, I have one in there. You can have it. Thanks, take them. Right now. What was that? Like, because we could put it in and it's like, book about it. So then it's like, we're going to do Charlie Boy Scout. And I was like, you know what, we're not doing anything else. We're going. Just somewhere in the fall that we have to spend the United States. They won't, they'll keep the sign over. We were going to go out of the country because we have kids. And I was like, So I was telling them, they're good.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. How's Brad? Yeah. That's what he said it. Out at your house tonight is the thing. He said he's sad, you know. Big difference.
Yes.
Is he good with you guys?
Just for their break. One called Hold the Dream. That was the burger.
In our driveway.
Like Ron's faster. That's the food on his way.
He's okay. So I couldn't even like squeeze by her yet. So I got out, put her park or whatever. I said, you guys have a new start. And she actually went into my garage. And they
I was only going to the
driveway. And I'm like, that's right. But I went to your house and blocked your driveway. I said, it's a garage. Monday and Wednesday of last week. And then like today when I left, I just came in from work, I changed my skin. And I go way up the road. They're parked in our grass. They leave all their RVs and garbage and all that front of the garden.
People move.
Right next door to us. The guy who bought the house from, that real big house that was built for years. And we were teasing them, because she was up to their house yesterday, and they were on these stupid cars there. And of course, we're not going to do it, because of the rain, so we're trying to get it. I was like, yeah, that's not me, I left out of the bus, they got me the camera. And he actually had a lady threaten him with a gun because we asked her to move the charges and gas. And he said, I'm not, you know, something, shoot up and get your car. My attorney's the guy right there. I guess she's very well talked. But it's just, it's annoying time and night after night, you can enter your garage. Put up signs or anything.
I don't want I'm not your expert, but I'll tell you it's not smart for your address on Facebook. I really didn't advertise where I'm living. West Lake City. Just right on Broadway. Yeah, we're there. Giving the exact coordinates of the yeah, but it's like, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you. So it's not smart to post that on Facebook. Yeah, just we did. Yeah, let's see. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you that it's not smart. This stuff. We're just going the weekend with you. Friday, so Monday. Marcus, seems to be chicken salad in a circle. Mark's like, what? What?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Mark wants to go camping. He's like, he's gonna catch me out.
I'd like to call the regular meeting of North Huntington Township Board of Commissioners for Wednesday, August 17, 2016 at 7 p.m. to order. Roll call, Manager Shepherd.
Commissioner Harrell. Here. Commissioner Hagas. Here. Commissioner Bertiani. Commissioner Gray. Here. Commissioner Facenda. Here. Commissioner Casera. Here. And Commissioner Martino.
Here. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and stand for the opening prayer by pass the ready lines. The Circleville Methodist Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, yeah, we're thankful for some rain, and we're thankful for all the love that you give to us. We're thankful for this place and for a beautiful place called North Huntington. We're thankful for our state, and we're thankful for our county. We're thankful for freedom. We're thankful for a time together to make things better. We ask you to bless our commissioners. We ask you to bless all the people here, that we can talk and work out issues, if there is any issues, in a good way. We're thankful, Lord, for this time. We ask your blessing to be with all the good people who are brave enough to run for office at every level. We ask all these things in the name of him who died for us. In his name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Brother. If there's any citizens that would like to speak tonight, please sign the book at the podium. Remember, the meeting is being recorded and video recorded. We have one citizen tonight, John Byrne. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Byrne, 11022 Grand Drive, North Huntington, Pennsylvania. I'm the scoutmaster of Troop 235 in North Huntington, Pennsylvania. My son is here to talk to you guys tonight about the Eagle project that we'd like to propose to do for the township. His name is John as well.
Okay.
Good evening. Excuse me, John. Could you make sure the microphone is on? Is the green light on?
No.
It was? Okay. Maybe pull it a little closer so we can hear you.
Stand close to the front. There you go.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing me. My name is John Byrne. I'm from Troop 295, Scout Troop in Irvine. I would like to present my Eagle Scout project idea to you. I want to paint markers on the road, making the fires. I want to paint markers on the road, making the fire hydrant. This will make it easier for the fire department to find the hydrant and take the fire. The Water Authority has given me a map of where the hydrants are located in the township. The central team funded by Lumber Fire Department Fire Department has agreed to help me by walking the area on the road that we will be painting. It should only take about 15 minutes to paint each area. We'll be using road paint, yellow colors, and we'll drive fast. The area I will be using will be the area that Hartford Heights surface. My father, who was my scoutmaster, is planning on making the Eagle project open to other scouts so that eventually the entire township pageant will be marked. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just a good answer.
What color? What color paint? Yellow?
We're going to start in the Hartford, I apologize, they're going to start in the Hartford Heights Fire District. And John might just finish that area, but as we talk about maybe more some other scouts in the future, go to the other districts in North Huntington and continue on with the project. So that's a place to start.
My game plan is to be the Eagle Scout representative for this project. Hopefully by this time next year or sooner, we'll have all the hydrants done. Because we have the map of all the hydrants. To do the whole thing would be too much for one scout.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to be a daunting task. But I figured, there's a lot of boys coming up. There's several in my troop. We're going to make it available to them. And if they're interested, if not, I'm going to go up to council. Because there's so many troops around. It's a very good project. I think it'll help a lot of people.
Very good question.
I'm sorry?
I think that's a great thing. What about safety for the kids, providing safety so they don't get hit?
I've talked to Hartford Heights. They're going to assist us with a fire truck. They'll be behind us with the lights. I'll be parked in front and we'll cone off the area while we paint it.
You're going to let you drive before you move to the next?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hopefully, and I had spoken to Mr. Casario. That's how you pronounce your name?
Casario.
I'm so sorry. About possibly having something on the fire truck that we could dry it off with. And also we have to play the weather game.
Like a blower or something?
Yeah, like a blower or something like that. Either that or I'm thinking a simple gas powered leaf blower will do it too.
You can always check the police too for safety or something.
Okay.
If they're available,
Chief, have you already bought the paint yet?
Not yet, sir.
Okay, can I make a recommendation to you? And I know Commissioner Bertani wanted to do the markings, and the markings were recommended that they be in like a blue. So possibly instead of yellow, could you do it in like a blue? And if you're going to purchase paint, my recommendation would be if you go to like Home Depot or Lowe's, and you get the spray paint, the line marking paint, it has a really fast drying time. That's the paint, we use a reflective white that we use to paint lines for BASCAR, and it's usually dry within 5 minutes.
Okay.
So
would you recommend like a lighter blue, like a watercolor?
I wouldn't recommend the water. I recommend something that would be like a medium to a dark blue.
Okay.
Because the other problem we would have with the yellow on the street is people might mistake that. I don't know how you're going to do the markings.
It's a 2 foot by 2 foot stencil.
Okay, like a fire hydrant.
Well, it'll have an H with an arrow pointing towards the
Okay.
hydrant.
People may think that's some type of roadway marking, since that's what they usually use, either white or yellow to mark the road. Where if you use something like a blue, it'll be easier to pick up for the fire department, and also the people won't mistake it for road markings.
Okay. We'll go that way then.
Chief, would there be any PennDOT regulation on this? On state roads, there would be. Matter of fact, we discussed that at the staff meeting. We'd have to, and PennDOT has already said on the state road, they don't allow anybody to do any type of marking on it. So you'd have to basically stay on township.
Can't do any state roads. They don't want any non-regulatory traffic markings on their roads. So Mr. Burnley actually already talked about that. It's strictly going to be on township streets.
Okay, so it won't be on Route 30 or
No.
Colonial Manor Road?
None of the state roads. And we talked about that. We'll make sure he knows. 'Cause sometimes you don't know, depending on some of the roads. You wouldn't think they're state roads.
Right. If you have any questions on the paint, let me know, and I can try and show you what it is.
Okay.
Okay?
That would be great. Thank you.
One thing I would stay away from is the darker blue, because if we get rain and it's dark at night, it may not stand out as much.
Tell me what you think.
I think that's why they want us to go yellow, so visibility.
Yeah, I think the dark blue at night, any fire department ought to be able to see that.
I know they make it like a reflective, like the white we use. So they do make it in reflective style
Hey, you
paint.
need something with reflective, that the light
Yeah.
even from the fire trucks will reflect it so you can see it.
We wanted to try to go into epoxy too, as we're doing now, as Rich has brought to our attention for the, for our painting, we're doing with our lines, because it lasts much longer. It's a little more expensive. We may be looking at 5 years out of epoxy paint versus something else, so we'll talk about some details.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming to us as a Boy Scout leader myself, and I believe Rich still is. We really appreciate the Boy Scouts coming to the township and helping us fix up the township. We appreciate that. Keep it close to them.
Absolutely.
Just be
Thank
safe,
you.
just be safe.
We will. Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Gray, are you
Yes.
still involved in this town?
Minimally, but yes. I haven't had the time lately.
Do you remember us?
I do,
Last time
absolutely.
you saw him, he was.
Yeah, much shorter hair too.
Okay, and thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's it for our citizens input. It's time for approval of minutes. Special meeting in July, there was no special meeting in July. Approval of the regular meeting for 7/20/2016.
Motion approved.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's 6-0. Payment of bills.
Make a motion, we pay voucher number 72653 through voucher number 72734.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-6-0. Staff report. Public Works report. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Elder? Rich, you have anything for commissioners?
I have nothing more to add, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Parks and Recreation report.
Dan Miller was on vacation this evening, wrapping up some of his, if there are any questions for Dan, you can certainly let me know tonight or in the future.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Police report. Anybody have any questions for the chief? Chief, do you have anything for commissioners?
Yes, sir, I just have one thing. Everybody received a memo through the manager from me about this armored vehicle from Mount Lebanon. If you wouldn't mind, please, just so they can refresh your memory. I know there was some concern from the commissioners about its roadworthiness. So today, myself, Sergeant Sage, and Corey from Public Works, who would be the mechanic working on it, went back to Mount Lebanon, and I got to hand it to Corey. He went over with a fine-tooth comb. I mean, he crawled underneath the thing and everything else. He declared it was roadworthy, it's better than what we're currently using, the officers are currently using. And another plus is, he said that a lot of the stuff that was already in stock at Public Works would be interchangeable with the engine on this International. He said that the motor on there is about a 500,000 mile motor that's taken care of. All brand new tires, the filters and all the fluids are clean. And Mount Lebanon offered to take them down to the road department, their road department, and let them see all the maintenance records that their department keeps on it. So I hate to rush the board. I was hoping we could get a decision tonight because they have a couple other departments that are looking at this. They're holding it for us as a courtesy to me, and I think the price is right for $1. I mean, and if possible, they need the garage where it's being stored because they've taken delivery of the new vehicle. Their new vehicle is not armored; it's just a standard truck, utility truck, and they don't want to leave this sitting on for someone to possibly either try to get or for the rust.
Chief, is that diesel engine or gas?
I'm sorry, sir, was it?
Is that a diesel engine or gas?
That's diesel, yeah. Well, when we went and looked at it the first time, he actually took us out in the bottom. We drove up and down the hills and had no problem getting out of it. And he said that when they used to do training exercises, he would drive it from Mount Lebanon to Westmoreland County Community College to their firing range, and the classrooms out there never had an issue.
For the board members that are familiar with our existing vehicle, it's been on its last legs for some years, and we've just gotten by with it. Because as you know, it's not a high-use vehicle, but if we need it, we certainly want it available. To me, this is a pretty easy decision. As the chief mentioned, Commissioner Bertani, who was in here, and I did have some concerns, just wanted to make sure mechanically it was a sound vehicle. So I believe, based on what the chief's found out, it is. I don't think there were any other negative comments, but since we had the meeting tonight, the chief has had opportunity to go out there fast and bring it to your attention. If there's no other concern, we certainly like to vote on it. We'll certainly be able to, to move forward with it. But if there's additional concerns, this would be a great time to talk about it. No, I don't need a motion. I just didn't want there to be any, again, good questions or concerns. I thought the other board members, I think Commissioner Casera was in favor of it, Commissioner Vicente, and some board members did respond. They were probably thinking it's fine and move forward with it. So,
Let's do it.
is there any other concerns or?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll move forward with it. Thank you.
All right, yeah, Chief.
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Emergency management report. Everybody should work for Chief. If you have any questions, want to give them to John, give them to Gene. Move on, planning and engineering report. Fire official report. Anything for Andy? No? Any subdivision and land development application reports, sir?
There's one resolution before you tonight concerning subdivision 10 of 2016 for the Robert C. Weber subdivision plan number 2. We recommend approval of that for the planning commission.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blanker. Next item is solicitor's report.
Yes,
Mr. Dyke.
Yes, there is one item on the tonight's report. It's an action to adopt a proposed ordinance number 4 of 2016, amending and supplementing ordinance number 474, which provides for a limitation to specific gross weight on Parker Drive.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried, 6-0.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Township manager report. Manager Chapman.
Thank you. First item is actually to approve the July check register.
Motion approved. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 2 is the budget report for July. Any questions on that? Item number 3 is actually to accept the resignation of Dan Wenzel from the Recreation Board.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item number 4 is actually to consent to the purchase of property identified as 10480 Lilac Street, tax map number 54-11-03-0-106, in accordance with the July 28, 2016 letter from Westmoreland County.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, discussion. Talk, this was confusing when I first read it. Maybe you could explain it to the public. We're not buying a piece of property.
No.
Approving.
Approving the sale of a purchase of property out of the Westmoreland County, I'm going to call it the tax repository fund, and if someone interested in buying a piece of property that hasn't been taxes paid on, to get it back on the tax rolls. They haven't asked us to do this in the past, so maybe they're starting a new process themselves at the county, and they're trying to make sure the tax jurisdictions are in agreement with making that sale. So I think this is the first one I've seen maybe in forever, and I'm sure they've done these in the past. So again, it's a new procedure in Westmoreland County.
John, do we have any liens or anything on the property?
I think we have one lien on this property for grass cutting at around $200. So from our standpoint, not much.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item number 5 is a discussion item that's concerning LERTA, and I'll I'll turn this over to Mike Turley, our assistant manager. Mike will give you a brief update on what he's been working on from an economic development standpoint. For some of the existing commissioners, certainly, are more familiar with the process when it goes to new board members that would like to bring up to speed on LRTA and also maybe talk about how some changes we're thinking about making to the program. Mike?
Thank you, John. You did receive, the board received my memo. As John mentioned, this is part of our development initiative where we've been looking at various properties in the township. And while we've had a lot of redevelopment at various parcels along Route 30, there's also a number of underutilized and vacant parcels, particularly along Route 30. And we've been looking at a number of ways to try to encourage development and redevelopment of some of those properties. There's typically not a lot of tools available to local government to do this, but one such tool is the LRTA Act, which is the Local Economic Revitalization Tax Assistance Act. Some of you are familiar with this because we've done LRTA in a couple of selected specific parcels in recent years, but it's very time consuming to do it. We really need a township-wide LRTA district and a map that we can show people that we have, what properties might be available if they're looking for that type of assistance. Anyway, we've been working on this, trying to outline what we thought were the appropriate parcels for a LRTA district. And we've been working with the planning department and Michael Payer is the development finance director with consulting firm Dwayne Morris. And he has a little presentation that's going to be available for some discussion and answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. So we'll quickly run through some background, just to familiarize ourselves with the LRTA Act, and then some of the preliminary work we've done in terms of mapping, and then an example of a project to show kind of how the tax program works. So as Mike mentioned, I'm the Development Finance Consulting Director at Dwayne Morris Government Strategies. We are a government relations firm headquartered here in Pittsburgh. I manage a practice that focuses on project finance for redevelopment projects, working with those four nonprofit developers. I work with corporate clients on incentives that are available for expansion and growth and relocation efforts, and also some planning work development. So just as a quick overview here, the LRTA Act of 1997 allows taxing authorities to provide incentives for new businesses and the expansion of existing businesses within delineated areas in an effort to create jobs and broaden the local tax base. Those eligible deteriorated areas, as they're referred to in the law, are based upon the criteria that's set forth in the Urban Redevelopment Law of 1945. Those are the 8 or 9 criteria of blight, as they're commonly referred to. Again, not quite, there doesn't have to be a formal study of the area, but looking at the conditions that might be present in the areas that are being examined. The goals are very much in line with other economic development programs that exist, encouraging private investment in these sites, revitalizing properties that again experience those criteria of blight, expanding economic activity, and increasing employment opportunities. The LRTA program is a real property tax exemption based upon a portion of the increased assessment that's attributable to the cost of either new construction or improvements that are made to a property. It's important to note that there's no impact to the existing tax base. The assessed value of the land or any increase after a new project cannot be exempt through the program. It's the building value only. And of course, at the end of the program, both the land and the building value following redevelopment are fully taxable once again. So as for the process to approve LRTA, the taxing bodies pass either a resolution or ordinance that outline the terms of the program and the exemption. That could be based on specific sites, larger districts such as a Main Street commercial area, or based upon zoning. The maximum exemption is 10 years, though it can be less. The assessed value of the land is not exempt. We're talking building value only. And the percentage of increased assessment it can be based on, or the increase can be based on a percentage, or the actual exemption can be based on that percentage increase, or based on a set dollar limit, or I've done them as a combination of both, where that was usually for standalone specific projects. where we would set an annual cap in the event that the assessment continues to go up. So there's no additional windfall. And there you see just a very basic 5-year exemption schedule that declines by 20% every year. That could be 100% over 5 years. It could be the max is 100% at 10 years, and then you could go anywhere lower than that. This is the map here, and I apologize, it's not very easy to view. I believe Mike has another copy we can pull up at the end for discussion as well. But we had gone out, following our engagement, started to catalog some sites, do some site inventories and see where the LRTA would make the most sense for those properties. Again, we're dealing with properties that are really in need of redevelopment, especially given the way the county handles reassessments. So if someone comes in and does not make a substantial change to a building, they might invest quite a lot of money in its redevelopment in terms of aesthetics, but if they don't make a change to the building footprint, that typically is not going to generate a reassessment, so it wouldn't really qualify for what. There would be no benefit to the property owner, so it doesn't provide much of an incentive. So we focused on sites where we would most likely see demolition or currently vacant sites as part of this, with the major focus being from the Allegheny County border and the entrance on Route 30 into the township. So just to run through one example based upon a hypothetical scenario that we've drawn up to illustrate the LRTA, we selected a vacant site along Route 30 that was just highlighted on the map. The current assessed value is just over $25,000, and you see the breakdown of current annual taxes that are paid to the free taxing bodies. And what we did was just assume that there's a new project on this site that will generate an assessed value, an improvement from the new building value of $1.5 million, just for example's sake. And here you see the breakdown of how that program would work. This is a 10-year LRTA that declines by 10% every year until year 11, where both land and building value would be fully taxable. And there in the middle, you can see the annual. This would be from the developer or project owner's perspective, what benefits they would receive annually. Which would be just under $700,000 of net present value for that developer, which would be pretty nice incentive for a new project on that site. The total new tax revenue, again, because we're seeing a decline in that exemption schedule, there is some of that improved value that's returned to the township and the other taxing bodies. We see the total aggregate new tax revenue over the life of those 10 years there, and then below that, you can see the annual taxes in year 11 after this LRTA would expire. So substantial growth from the current assessed value of $25,000 and the current taxes that this property generates. The one thing that we did know when going through and when I was driving through the township with Mike and taking a look at specific sites, there are some larger development sites or even smaller sites that have significant challenges in terms of public infrastructure and would more likely be candidates for tax-deferred financing deals, simply because, and we'll get into this very briefly as an overview, but tax-deferred financing is where developers or projects to take a look at ways to finance those improvements to the public infrastructure to make a site possible. So instead of the LRTA program where they get a benefit in terms of net present value that they can factor into the overall pro forma for a project, the TIF is more of a financing mechanism. There are a few sites that I identified that seem more likely to be candidates for TIF going forward. They can be included in the LRTA, but we thought that, given the interest in those sites or the fact that they can be actively marketed, we would give a quick overview of what TIF is. I know there's been a lot of substantial projects here in the Pittsburgh region that utilize TIF, so a lot of people have at least a base level understanding. We'll go quickly through the tool, which again uses incremental taxes, very similar to what we were talking about in terms of the LRTA, within a specified area to finance capital improvements within that same area or off-site improvements that relate back to the site. It was enabled by the TIF Act of 1990. Again, dealing with areas that are in need of redevelopment, there's a bit more of a, you need to actually have a study completed and approval by the Planning Commission of that basic condition report in order to qualify an area for the use of TIF. Redevelopment would not occur, of those sites would not occur but for the TIF. That's an important part of not only Pennsylvania's but nationally. A lot of TIF statutes include that test that the project, or at least the project is contemplating, can go forward without the TIF. And again, it's important to note that TIF is utilized almost exclusively, especially within our region, to finance necessary public infrastructure related back to that but-for test. It can be either for a specific project or a large site, or a district-wide TIF, although that's less common in Pennsylvania. Here's a quick model to show how TIF works. So we see, again, there's no impact to the existing tax base from any of these properties. And the area that's kind of light blue, bluish gray shaded represents the incremental taxes over a 20-year period following redevelopment. So up front in year 1, year 0, what we do is capture those, based upon the ability to capture those taxes, calculate the net present value, and then find a way to incur debt to finance those improvements up front that will allow the incremental revenue to be generated over time. That is captured, at least a portion of that. Typically, it's 60 or 75% of that increment, the rest of it being returned to the taxing laws. And then within Pennsylvania, we go with a 20-year max TIF. Following year 20, all land and building would be fully taxable. Or they're still taxable no matter what, but all taxes will return to the general fund. So TIF is based upon, again, the projected cash flow of the property tax increment that will be generated over the life of the TIF. The diversion rates is what is referred to, some common terms in TIF world. We deal with the diversion rate, which is that percentage of the incremental taxes that are pledged to repayment of the debt. And again, for the last bullet point there, that could be upfront financing. We also have a model that we're allowed to use. It's called pay-as-you-go, where the developer utilizes some other source, and they're basically reimbursed by the TIF over the life of the TIF, based upon the costs they incur, the eligible costs. TIF debt, if there is a debt instrument put in place, most commonly it's a redevelopment bond, tax exempt. TIF debt is non-recourse not only to the local taxing authorities that participate in the TIF, but also the issuing authority, which in this case would likely be someone like the redevelopment authority or industrial development authority in the county. And because of that, we often see the credit enhancements are necessary because it's non-recourse. And this slide just shows some important differences. Again, LRTA is a tax exemption, whereas TIF, all taxes are paid. Where those taxes go, they go either into the pay-as-you-go method or to finance the infrastructure and pay off that service. And my contact information, if anybody has any comments after.
For the boards, again, we're, I guess, refreshing more than anything. You know, we use the, I'd say the two most recent projects we used LRTA on was the redevelopment on Norwood Shopping Center. We also used them for the Express Scripts site near the Turnpike. Those sites, and we traditionally, you know, we looked at potentially a 10-year LRTA here. The most we've done in the past in North Huntington has been 5 years. So that's a good example, just so we have an idea what the maximum would be. But in the past, we've used 5 years. It's worked out relatively well from the standpoint of, you know, being enhancement to the development. So something else to consider from the standpoint as we move forward with the projects. But again, I think the most important thing, what Mike's trying to determine at this point, and he'll get back to this, is, you know, we're trying to get together a map. We're really trying to get a document together that when the developer comes in North Huntington, since I'm interested in the site, we can say, look, this is a tool, this LRTA is already in place, this district, so if your project fits the criteria, you know, you're eligible for that. Going way back in time, Commissioner Gray probably recalls Commissioner Harold, we used to have a LRTA map. We used to have a map in North Huntington that had, similar to this, not the exact parcel, of course. And at some point that became a problem, I think. You know, some commissioners didn't like that and thought it was better to do a project-by-project sort of approval for LRTA. And as Mike has said and seen, I think his discussions with folks, Westmoreland County, different people, he thinks that's probably more cumbersome than it needs to be. So we're trying to go back to like a map-based system, and that's where we are tonight, trying to at least look at that from the standpoint of, does that make sense to the board? The specific parcels may not make sense to you, but does it at least make sense to you conceptually that we could, you know, spend some time working on this? If it doesn't, you know, there's no reason to move forward with it and spend more time on it. So that's really, I believe, what we're looking at here this evening. In addition to the overview, just so everybody kind of understands the process.
I think what the problem was back then, Joel, was that we had decided that once you have a map, anybody can come into that area, right? You can't deny it.
Yeah, as long
I
as.
think we wanted to be a little more selective as to who we extended the benefit to. Because if you have somebody coming in that you didn't necessarily really want to attract that kind of business, we would have the ability to say no.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're right without knowing specifically more about it. I would say you're right about that.
Well, I think the question is some specific parcels that were part of the LERTA. There was a question of whether they should be a LERTA property.
Because it wasn't needed.
I think what this predicts me, what must have happened is, it looked to me like the old LERTA map, almost all, if not all, the commercial and industrial properties were LERTA, and I think that's one way to do it. If somebody wants to invest in your company, some people do that apparently, all the properties are LERTA properties. We had some issues with that a few years back when it was repealed. But what we wanted to do is what we've done here is to be more selective on the parcels. Now, some of the parcels don't need LERTA assistance, and we're trying to capture that here. So what we did was went and looked at the parcels that were underutilized. We looked at the zoning. We looked at a number of features that really tried to come up with a map that they really needed, that these properties needed it. And we didn't go like a community-wide, all the commercial zones, and the community would be eligible for LERTA. So it's scaled back quite a bit from what the old map is, more geared towards what we thought was needed.
If we move forward with like the actual map, would we just have a kind of catch-all, this is LERTA, and if we decide to do a 5-year program, however that structure broke down, that would be it, or we just designated these as LERTA areas, and then they would come and actually kind of do how we're currently doing it?
You mean how they would come back for the individual program, what the board would approve for the?
Correct, or would this just be a baseline overall?
The approval legislation would include the exemption schedule.
So
So
we did a whole
plus
side.
that, you also, and Bruce probably knows better, but if you run this mission of uniform taxation, you start to have one LERTA that has, so it is, that is one of the challenges, even from my perspective, when I was looking at the parcels, that actually led to a lot of that TIF discussion was, if someone came in and they had, a $10+ million project, is this LERTA going to be providing enough benefit, they're going to have to go out and look for other sources? Whereas, those projects seem more likely to be TIFs in the future, could easily be taken out. But we try to focus on areas where we probably have similar sized projects, so every developer would have roughly the same benefit, and that benefit is obviously based upon their investment in the site and the future assessment of the property, but not having any larger tracts where we would probably have a developer either receiving too much benefit or not enough benefit. We try to mitigate that a little bit as much as you can. But when you apply the blanket, and that's one factor. 5 years, so there are hundreds of different ways to calculate. One way to protect the taxing bodies, as mentioned, is to put in some type of cap based upon a hypothetical project. And then if a developer comes in and they actually need more assistance, you can revise the LERTA for that site based upon the need in that project. It's hard to, without having, we had very little in terms of an actual pipeline development to take a look at to know what kind of that average need was. But it's kind of, you don't want to give away too much, obviously, but also you want to make sure it provides enough incentive or it's not really worth doing. I'd say, in terms of the LERTA projects I've worked on that have not been as successful, they've been two factors. One, it just did not provide enough benefit to the property owners. B, and probably even more important, it was just not advertised properly. That property owners or other developers didn't know about the program in order to be able to build a calculation or take a look at properties they might not have considered.
Every development that we've done over the years that's participated in LERTA, we've had in the old ordinance, we had slidings, the reducing scale leave at 100% for 3 years or 5 years. Every one of them taken at 100%. Often some people would think that we've never had one that's taken that. They take it up front. It probably helps them at the beginning of their development that as years go on. And again, for those that recall, I think the LERTA originally came to North Huntington from Westmoreland counties. They brought here whenever they did the industrial park on Parker Drive, the road we did earlier with the weight limit for through traffic. That's where it came from. That's what brought North Huntington accustomed to even doing LERTA projects was the county industrial park. And it was good at that point. I'm sure they needed that to make that project work for them financially.
Those projects just tend to be different in terms of if you have an own gas, we have, in that case, they wanted to incentivize tenants to come in, so they can offer better deals. When you're dealing with just an unknown scenario, especially along Route 30, given the parcel sizes, mix of ownership, those type of issues, it's a bit harder to structure something that's uniform across the board. But we can work through various scenarios to see what works the best.
Board certainly doesn't have to make a decision tonight. You may want to just take it under advisement and see if you're interested in, moving forward and putting together something more concrete concerning the program and a map. And we can certainly talk about it in the future. We can talk about it as much as the board wants to tonight, but it's it's something that you may want to get to think about for some period of time. It's not an immediate decision isn't immediately needed by Mike, but it's something that's been on his radar because he wants to be able to know what tools he has available when he's talking to potential developers that are interested in North Huntington. Anything he knows he can talk to them about, he wants to know. He doesn't want to mislead them. Something that he knows that may not be for certain.
We get occasional inquiries like this, and we don't have anything to show. It's awkward, actually, but we don't have a single parcel that we can say there's an incentive to develop there. So I would encourage that what form we do this in is up to the board. We can make suggestions. This is our initial suggestion. So with two items. One is the map and parcels themselves, and the other is the schedule. So if you want, Mike, I think we should come back with them with a schedule. This is our map, and then if you want to move ahead today or in the next month or so, however you want to do that. Our step after that would be to go to the other tax advice.
That's what I was just going to bring up. When you look at the formula for who saves the most, we save the least.
Right.
Okay, the school district is the one that's affected the greatest. So while I think it's important to come to the township and get our feelings on this, I sure want to know what the school district is saying about this. Have you gone to them at all?
Not yet, just because this would,
I just think.
But I agree.
Let's not get ahead of the school district, because if they nix it, it's over.
No, from a timing standpoint, we've been in the past, had just fabulous cooperation with the school district. For the projects that this board has been interested in doing, they've been nothing but cooperative. But they do have concerns. They're not interested in, again, just putting something on a lot of tax dollars for no reason. So
You're talking about a township map.
Correct. So I think that from Mike's perspective, and I would agree that if this board's not interested, there's no reason to even talk to the school. So if this board has some interest in a map of some sort, whether it represents what's on the board or not, we would certainly take that to the school. That may be too cumbersome for them. They may not be comfortable with it. We would certainly bring that back to you. Our experience has been with Westmoreland County, and they can change. They've changed leadership at times, but their experience with us is if North Huntington's in favor of it and the school district, the county's supportive of us. So we're pretty comfortable with them trying to support local development throughout the county, as long as the local municipality and school district, whether it's North Huntington or Hempfield or Penn Township, is interested. They've been, again, very cooperative. So they're probably the most familiar with this process than anybody.
Yeah, it can be done without the school districts, legally, without the school district. Just the development does not receive enough incentive, and in most cases, it's not worth completing. But that said, we definitely need the host municipalities' approval, so that was the logical first step was here. I have not spoken with anyone at the school district yet. Our next step following this meeting was to reach out to the administration. I did have a conversation with the county, though, because I regularly have a few projects throughout the county, so it is on their radar. They did reiterate that they want to see the specifics, but at this time, their general feeling on LRTA and tax financing is it's something that's being driven locally. They're on board and support.
So I guess I would suggest if the map is agreeable, we would maybe present the two schedules we had previously, John, because the issue wasn't the exemption schedule, it was the parcels.
Sure.
So the old schedule, you had two options. One was a 3-year 100%, and that's it, or you had a sliding scale.
Over 5 years.
Over 5 years.
Right.
Those were the schedules, the two schedules that we did previously. And like Mike had mentioned, if we have a particular parcel where we need some high value, somebody's really interested and we need more, we would go back through a specific LRTA change for that parcel and go to the school district, like we did for the individual ones we've done recently. We can always go back and change that. But I would suggest just stay with the schedule we used before. unless you feel like you want to provide more incentive, and then you might go to a longer schedule or provide more benefit.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go out past 5, only because, again, talking about the school, you start looking at those numbers, they may start to think, wait a minute, we can't wait 10 years to get our tax money. And I think they've been pretty cooperative of waiting 5 years on some big projects that they know were really important to us. Redeveloping the shopping center was extremely important to us. Express Coast was important to all of us. So what I would recommend, just based on, it sounds like the board doesn't have a lot more questions tonight. What I would say is, what we'll do for you is Mike will give you the schedules again, so maybe kind of how the resolution or ordinance would work, and maybe we can look at it maybe at our next work session. You guys can think about it again with the map, and then maybe, over the course of the month, have some thoughts on whether or not you're comfortable with this. We'll bring it back to the next work session. Does that sound like enough time for you guys to at least think about what this is?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I just have one more question. So, could we just designate this as our alert map and then approve, basically, you said we could go back and approve site by site if it was a bigger project. Could we just approve this as our alert map without any type of structure, 5 years, 3 years? I know that gives you a little bit more opportunity to maybe sell a parcel because they have the structure there in place, but.
They wouldn't, the only problem is they wouldn't know what the benefit was. And we would have to go back to each of the taxing bodies for each parcel, which is sort of what we would like to get away from. It would be nice to have what you're saying, but, because, but I think that we need something we can present that shows the benefit.
Yeah, that would just be, then you would be in case-by-case negotiations, and then, certain and it is, I mean, the factors are different. You're mentioning a project like Express Scripts, obviously job creation and incentivizing them to come to the township. That project's very different than, purchasing 5 vacant lots and building a new commercial center, a retail center. So you have various different project types, and it can be somewhat difficult to negotiate individually. But that said, that hypothetically, just defining this as more of an eligible areas we will discuss, at least provide something more than what it is today, but you do have that risk, especially with your school board members changing those type of issues.
Mike, I have a question. Down the road, will you attach, I know there's traffic studies and things of that nature, to sell a property? Will you talk to a developer about things of that nature to be able to push them into selling the property? Will you go deeper than a map? That's what I'm asking.
We would, in the case of LERTA specifically, we would provide them the information and the schedules and who the property owner is. And certainly it's more interesting if it's a parcel that's for sale. That's easier. But sometimes, there's a saying, every parcel is for sale. So sometimes folks that are developers, they don't always concern something not actually listed. So they tend to do a lot of that around us. Sometimes we might be a little bit involved, sometimes we're not involved. And they come to us, typically they're interested in the planning department and the approvals and the site plan for those sort of issues.
So do we have that information available for them if they ask?
Yes, well, we would have this, and we have what's there, all the things that are needed for them to get a site approval.
All right, game plan will bring this back in September to work session for some additional discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance.
Thanks, Mike.
Next item we have is an additional discussion item. It's concerning police vehicle fleet. Everybody did receive the memo from Chief Lisecki concerning vehicle fleet. In a proposal he was looking at concerning the 2 surplus canine vehicles that we recently took off the road because we purchased 2 new ones. Again, the chief is proposing at this point to keep those, put them in rotation, with some thoughts of how that would impact our future purchasing and the department, which has been trying to standardize over the years from a capital standpoint. So I know at least a few board members expressed concerns about me making sure the fleet didn't get too big, which I do agree with them, but also I understand where the chief's going from a standpoint of trying to standardize things. So if we could have a discussion on that, maybe the chief can give a brief overview again. He talked about this, I think, earlier in the year when we talked about purchasing the new vehicles. I think the board probably thought more about the purchasing the new vehicles than maintaining these 2 canines. So we can get some of your questions and answers. The chief can do a presentation, kind of get the feel of the board. We'll know whether or not we should put these back in the fleet for continued use or potentially look at them as surplus vehicles and sell them, trade them, whatever the case may be. So Chief, I'll give it to everybody. Has your memo, but I'll let you give your overview again.
Thank you, sir. The easiest way to, I guess, to present this is to remind the board that we currently have 3 shifts. We have an AM at 6A to 6P, a PM which is 6P to 6A, and a split, which is 3P to 3A. And we use that split to back up and help reduce overtime on either one of those shifts because those are our busiest times. On any of the shifts, we could have upwards of 5 officers max working. My proposal by getting the board to approve and allow us to hold the 2 K-9 cars is that we will now have a fleet of 10 marked vehicles, which will allow us to rotate between an AM shift and a PM shift. We'll have 2 K-9 vehicles. As you know, those are take-home vehicles, so our 2 K-9 officers use those. We will also have 3 unmarked vehicles. 4 unmarked vehicles, and 2 of those will be used by our split people as traffic enforcement and / also I want to try and make it more crime suppression, more patrolling in the neighborhoods next year, especially during those hours because of all the vehicle thefts or theft from vehicles we've been having. So I gave you a breakdown of the vehicles and their current mileage and the numbering system we're going to adopt. And it's my intent, and hopefully we'll be able to do this, although it may take us a couple years, because if you take a look at the current fleet, there are a lot of miles on a lot of the vehicles. My hope is that currently we purchase anywhere from 2 to 3 vehicles a year. By doing this rotation and keeping that schedule in play, we won't be running vehicles 24 hours a day. We'll be putting less miles on it, and then we can go to maybe buying 2 to 3 vehicles every 2 to 3 years. But again, it's going to take us 1 to 2 years to get that way. I don't want the board to think that it's going to happen overnight, because a lot of our vehicles, because of the current way we use them, do have some high mileage, as you can see. And that's basically it. I think that it'll benefit us. Next year, we're looking at purchasing 1 car and 2 motorcycles. And then in 2018, we're looking at purchasing right now 3 vehicles. So again, I think it'll allow us to be able to use the vehicles more appropriately between the 2 shifts, and also help to reduce down the mileage on the vehicles to allow us to get more use out of them before we have to purchase.
Here's my concern with keeping the old cars.
Yes, sir.
They're K-9 cars. I know what my truck smells like when I run 2 Labradors in my truck all the time. You can never get that smell out. Never. K-9s slobber and everything else. Nothing against K-9s. I love K-9s. There was something was said a couple of years ago that you can never get that smell out of the K-9 car. Other officers would not want to drive that car because it has a K-9 and you put it back on the road as a regular patrol car. So if you're asking me if I want to keep those K-9 cars, absolutely not.
Well, I'd just like to point something out to you, sir, that we currently have car 6 that was formerly a K-9 car. It's been in service for the past 2 years. We haven't had any complaints from any of the officers. So when the vehicles are, and a matter of fact, Sergeant Sage just finished the one, they take the metal cage that contains the whole rear for the dog to sit on. He removes that, and then they take it down over to our car wash place, Palorinos, who basically disinfect and decontaminate the whole inside of the vehicle. The vehicles outside now, as a matter of fact, the one, you're more than welcome to go out and sniff the interior. Again, we've had multiple officers use the current vehicle, car 6, which is a former K-9 car, and it's been in service for the past 2 years without any issue. And if an officer has, because I heard some of the same concerns, and if an officer has an allergy and claims he has an allergy to that K-9 smell, then what could happen is the supervisor would just assign him, the supervisor of that shift would just assign that officer to work a different vehicle. But if we don't have the 5 and 5, then again, we're starting to use all the cars. And if you can see from the mileage on the vehicles, as soon as we get a new car, everybody wants to use the new car, nobody wants to use the old cars. So we're seeing some of our newer Explorers with more miles than our older Crown Vics. So again, it would basically be up to the supervisor to assign his people, and he knows who's able to work what car. And if there's any concerns, I think we could address that if the issue comes up. But again, Car 6 has been in service for over 2 years. Multiple officers have used it without any problems on the road.
That's my
Okay.
If I'd have known you wanted to keep these cars, I would never voted for you to get 2 new Explorers. That's just my point of view. Okay? And I'm gonna ask you to keep the cars.
Okay. And if I could just answer that, if we wouldn't have got the 2 new vehicles, we wouldn't have had these 2 vehicles to request to get. Well,
I understand that part.
yeah, the other reason they're sitting out there right now is because they weren't reconverted back to patrol cars.
I mean, I'm okay moving forward with keeping the cars and putting them back in the fleet, you know? And like you said, I kind of like the idea of just getting more into a cycle of, you know, maybe it's every 2 to 3 years, you know, we purchase 2 or 3 vehicles. I think, you know, just from my experience on the board, you really hate to say no rhyme or reason. It's just like, you know, we'll get 2 cars this year, and then we'll get, you know, 2 or 3, and then next year will be 1, and then 2 or 3. But I think that's, as you speak to, as the mileage kind of fluctuates, we have to kind of react to that. We have more of a set structure where we can plan better around when the vehicle's mileage are going to go up, other than just the usage.
And I think it's more fiscally sound if we're able to rotate the vehicles 5 and 5.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I know when I was in K-9, I have to agree with Commissioner Martina that things stunk no matter what you did. But the new concept in the cars and that, they're almost kind of like in a bathtub. They're in a sealed unit back there, aren't they?
That's correct, and they also have fans, they have exhaust fans out the rear window that helps to cool the dog off and also to pull out some of the odor. And I think the biggest thing that causes the odor is the hair that would be in it. And that's why before we put the old one back in service, the cage was removed, the floor was left bare, and then basically Palorina was able to get in there and disinfect and, you know, what they call disinfect and decontaminate the whole thing and steam everything out.
Yeah, I'm fine with keeping the vehicles. I don't think we'd get our money out of them on this bid. I mean, one has 53,000, another one has 46. We keep them for 100,000 miles. Both of them still have a lot of life for us to get out of them.
I think both of them did have a lot of life in them. That's why I voted not to buy the new vehicles. But I thought we may have had a little bit more insight in the years past and purchased all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicles. I'd rather get rid of the Crown Vics. I don't want, this fleet should be nothing but four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicles.
And I couldn't agree with you more, and if the board would like to, we can get rid of all the Crown Vics this year and purchase all new all-wheel drive. The problem we have when we purchase vehicles for the police department is we need to purchase a vehicle that is pursuit rated. So we can't just go out and buy a regular Chevy Impala. We have to buy the police package Chevy Impala. And back when we were originally buying cars, there were only a couple that were pursuit rated, and that was the Ford Crown Vic and the Chevy Impala in more recent years that we have here. So there was not an all-wheel drive vehicle until recently. So that is currently what we're doing. When we replace a vehicle, we replace it with an all-wheel drive. Ford is the only company right now that makes an all-wheel drive. I apologize for that. Ford and Dodge make an all-wheel drive police pursuit rated package. The Dodges are for all intents and purposes, not very good for police service. Everybody has them to get rid of them. They do make a sedan, but the sedan is the same price as the SUV. So we will stick with the SUVs. But again, we can't do that until we trade in or upgrade our Prime Vics. And I know, and my apologies to the new members of the board, this was discussed last year under the budget, and I thought that it had been okay to improve, because we even purchased equipment for the 2 K-9 vehicles in anticipation. And I know the new members of the board weren't aware of it because you just got sworn in. But that was, it was discussed last year under the capital improvement plan during the budget talks to the then board.
Yeah, see, we gotta keep in mind too, the old board didn't want the motorcycles either. The new board brought back the motorcycles.
And I understand that. That's why I just want to make sure that everybody on the board currently understands what the plan is. Yeah.
Just another question. Yeah, this is, if them K-9 cars are okay with being put back in rotation, why were they taken out of rotation?
I don't know. Well, they were taken out of rotation.
Well, if they only have 50,000 miles on, you want to put them back in, why didn't we just leave them?
Well, that was the plan that was discussed last year under the budget talk, and what I said, we were going to replace 2 vehicles. My recommendation was we replace the 2 K-9 vehicles because they've been getting called out a lot by the state police, and they've had to go do wood searches, looking for armed robbers and stuff, and they couldn't get to those areas with a rear-wheel drive Ford Crown Vic. So the plan in my eye was to take these 2 lower mileage vehicles, turn them back into patrol, and replace them with the all-wheel drive Explorers.
With the board's pleasure.
I believe I already stated mine. I'm completely fine with keeping them in and, do whatever type of cleaning, retrofit them back to be patrol cars, put them back in service. And I believe like Andy said, we got 50,000, give or take, miles on each of those, a little bit over or under. If we go to sell those, we're probably gonna not get worth anything of what we can get used out of them, putting them back in service.
I agree. And I agree with Mike. I think we should have all-wheel drive or four-wheel drives, but we can't just go out and purchase a bunch of vehicles. So I would be in favor of keeping these and using them.
Well, years ago, like she said, we didn't have that option. When they did the one for Expedition, and that was really just a vehicle to get around. You guys used to borrow the planning vehicles just to utilize because we didn't have all the cars they make now. They just weren't available in police.
Back then,
they weren't options.
We had a Ram Charger for the game, which was nice because the dog had more room in the vehicle, would carry more equipment. It, there again, went off-road quite often because of lost children or, lost parties or drug parties or alcohol parties. So, that would be my reason for changing the game to the four-wheel drives when they came in. And then put these 2 into regular patrol vehicles.
I know from my viewpoint, whenever, some board members brought this to my attention, I thought, well, it may not make sense to keep these additional vehicles because I don't like to have a lot of extra things sitting around, whether it's vehicles and equipment. I just don't like to have that. I think we do that sometimes when things just sit here. We may not be uncommon with other places, but when the chief and I talked about this additionally, and he explained to me what his plan was for next year for the capital budget, which was 1 new vehicle, and when he talks about getting 2 motorcycles, he just means exchanging the ones we have. Every few years we exchange those vehicles for new ones. It's not that much of a cost for us, and because it's new motorcycles, it piqued my curiosity because I thought from a budgetary standpoint, that's better than we've done the last few years. We've been buying like 3 vehicles a year for the police department, and from a capital standpoint and budgeting standpoint for 17, I like that idea. So I thought it made sense. I do agree with what Tony's saying concerning the smell of the cars or making sure they're clean. We wouldn't want them to be in a position where they wouldn't be like that. That's my viewpoint on it for what it's worth.
Everybody has my opinion. Everybody knows my opinion. Up to you guys.
I'm no.
No.
I'm okay with buying 1 new.
All right, so based on where we are, I would say the vehicles are here. I would just hate to spend additional time and money putting them back in service if we're in a future meeting of the board and there's 7 members here and there'd be a member that would be interested in doing that. So I would recommend just keeping this as a outstanding item for a future board meeting. If that's
okay with that.
Board chief, we know where we are. So let's plan on doing that.
Okay, so we're gonna get rid of it?
No, we're gonna keep them as they are. So we may be 1 month away from having a decision on, making a decision on it. So if that. Maybe a full complement of the board, and we'll get Commissioner Bertan's input. If he's in favor of putting them back in the fleet, then we can do that. And if he's not, then we'll move forward with, with whether it's trading them, selling them, whatever we think the best thing to do with those vehicles is to take them out of the rotation. So I would say just keep it as they are.
Okay, well, the one is already done. Are we able to put that one in for right now, or do you want to just hold on to that? The other one is being worked on currently.
I would just keep it out right now so it doesn't complicate the matter. And obviously, when we go to sell those or trade those, any cleaning up we've done on those vehicles will certainly garner some additional money on them.
So one of them has already been remarked?
Yeah, one of them's already been completed, yeah.
We just cleaned it up. We definitely wanted to clean them up regardless of selling them. Yeah.
So we should probably do the other one, no matter what anyway. Right?
Yeah, we can clean up the inside and just make sure it's, because again, if we sell them, we can get a little bit of money for these vehicles. We're certainly not gonna get the value of keeping them on the road for 3 years, but we'll get more for them than we will for an older police vehicle that has 105,000 miles on it. You still have pretty nice mileage. There's life left in these vehicles, but they're still used police vehicles.
And other than the cost for the cleaning, we already have the equipment, Public Works, and the old Crown basically converted to Explorers, so it doesn't cost us anything to pull the canine cage on it and put a patrol cage in. So if the board's okay, we'll finish the other one, we just won't put them in the rotation, and then whatever the board decides to do, future.
Is there more resale value in K9 or regular patrol cars?
I would say no, because not a lot of the departments have canines.
A lot of our resale, I don't know if we've ever resold a vehicle. We could through the police department. We sell them, like as Wayne or Zach had mentioned, on municipal bid, and usually it's a lot of times it's taxi cab companies that purchase them because they look at them as still valuable vehicles. They know that even though they've had a lot of miles on them, that they're heavy duty vehicles, and that the engine themselves may garner about 100,000 miles. So we would get some interest in these vehicles from that perspective. Okay, we'll bring that one back to the board. Next item on the agenda tonight, it's really no board action, it's really just for information for the board, and also if there's any questions from the board. We have some proposed demolitions that the planning and zoning department would like to move forward with. These are all single-family homes located in North Huntington, 4500 Turner Valley Road, 11741 Haywood Road, 13360 St. Clair Drive, and 13229 Bridge Road. We provided you with all the backup material concerning those properties, concerning the notices that have been sent, and various pictures on those properties to let you know the condition of those properties. So most of these, and probably all of these, have been homes that have been abandoned for some period of time, multiple years. None of these are units where people live in and were interested in demolishing them. These are abandoned properties. We always want to give you this list just so you're aware of it, and just so you're comfortable with what the planning department is trying to do to get notice to people to correct the properties. So I don't know if there's any questions on any of those properties.
There's one comment, you identified them as all homes, 4500 Turner Valley Road, and I'm not sure when the last time it was a home.
It was at one point, I apologize.
It was formerly the Swingers Palace. We had shut down.
I apologize. It was built as a home, and it was
Right.
converted.
Right, those people will be glad to see that though.
So if there's no questions on those, we'll just move forward with those. We have money in the budget for this year, and we'll do that, and then we'll keep bringing that back depending on future budget years. And we're certainly getting things, cleaned up for the township from the planning department standpoint. I appreciate their work on those. Next handful of items I have are all the seasonal bid awards we do every year. These are all materials utilized by the Public Works Department. So if you bear with me, I'll read these individually. Of course, if there's any questions on them, please let me know. Item number 8 is action to award the bid for storm inlets and breaks to Culverts Incorporated in the amount of $137 per storm inlet and frame and $255 per break.
Motion approved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 9 is action to award the bid for E3 asphalt emulsion to Russell Standard Corporation at a price of $1.363 per gallon for 25,000 gallons.
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 10 is action to award the bid for Type B coal patch to Russell Standard at a price of $84.35 per ton.
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 11 is action to award the bid for bituminous surface material to Hanson Aggregates, 9.55 millimeters at a price of $54 per ton and 25 millimeters at a price of $46 per ton.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 12 is action to award the bid for Class A concrete to JLB Holdings Incorporated at a price of $135 per cubic yard.
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 13 is action to award the bid for anti-skid material to Ligonier Stone and Lime Company at a price of $22.28 per ton.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 14 is action to award the bid for stone to Hanson Aggregates as follows. Number 1 dust, $17.05 per ton. 1B stone, $29.05 per ton. Number 2 stone, $21.05 per ton. Number 2B stone, $20.55 per ton. Number 3 stone, $20.55 per ton. Number 4 stone, $20.55 per ton. And number 2A stone, $17.55 per ton.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Item 15 is action to award the bid for polyethylene drainage pipe to Pleasant Unity Supply for the following sizes. 10-inch diameter, $3.75 per lineal foot. 12-inch, $4.45 per lineal foot. 15-inch, $6.25 per lineal foot. 18-inch, $8.55 per lineal foot. 24-inch, $14.50 per lineal foot. 30-inch, $19.95 per lineal foot. 36-inch, $25 per lineal foot. And just a notation, as I have on the agenda for the board's knowledge, is Pleasant Unity Supply Pipelines Inc. and Culverts Inc. They submitted identical bids from a price standpoint. We encountered this last year also with 3 bidders, and I'm assuming they're using the same supplier, or the same manufacturer that have identical prices on their pipe. At that point, Bruce Geis, our solicitor, did render an opinion that at that point you can select which company seems to make the best sense for you to utilize, because the price obviously is the same, it's all the same low bid. In the past, Rich Alpers recommended using Pleasant Unity, they're a local supplier, and sometimes we do go to their facility and actually pick up pipe in an emergency. So his recommendation is to stick with Pleasant Unity. That's who we have currently as our supplier.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Everything I have, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mayor Shepherd. Next item is further board comments. Do you have any? If not, announcements.
Just one item tonight, and it's the upcoming 2016 summer celebrations on our calendar. It's scheduled at Oak Hollow Park. It's on Friday, August 26th, and also Saturday, August 27th. Both days start at 4 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Ayes have 6-0. We'll have an executive session after the meeting, starting at the gate. Thank you, everybody coming from the audience.
Why are you so rude?
How you doing? Good, I think so, Anytime you want to go.
Does he get to come on? So he gets called time.
You can't make I guess, yeah, I don't know. I think some of it's clear, but, it may just be rebellion. You want me to give him a call? Right. I'll give him a call like at 8 o'clock. Anti. I'll call you soon. We'll see maybe like 11. Yeah, I'll play with you. That's good. I appreciate it. Hey, how do you like it? I appreciate that. Anything.